Good morning, friends and enemies. In today's video, the Week 13 waiver wire, we're talking about every trending up player, all the trending down players that I think you should pick up, that I think you can drop going into the fantasy playoffs, all right? We've got some interesting names on the list for sure, probably not as hyper fixated on the list as we were last week, but nonetheless, we must get to the juiciness of the turkey. Thanksgiving week. We've got games on Thursday. We've got a game on Friday. We've got the normal Sunday slate, of course. And then we have a bye week in week 14. So I think one of the most interesting parts of this week, even if you don't like a lot of players on the bye week, is making sure that you look at your schedule for week 14, because you got Carolina, San Francisco, New England, and the New York Giants. All four of those teams are on bye in week 14. So some of you guys will have roster spots that badly need to be plugged up. So look at your starting lineup for next week and then look at players on the waiver wire this week. Look at the matchups. See if you need to plug a hole. See if you've got George Kittle. See if you've got Rico Dowdle. See what you need to do on the waiver wire this week to make sure that the week before the playoffs, you have a starting lineup that you feel good about. All right, let's start it with the running back position. The very top of the list is Dameon Pierce. Of course, this is the most obnoxious ad of all time. Obviously not owned anywhere, so that his number of pickups is going to be very high on this list. He was signed to Kansas City. I have negative interest in Dameon Pierce. Kareem Hunt's running well. Isaiah Pacheco expected to be returning to the team. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was activated. Richard, okay. Chris Rodriguez, they are coming off of the bye. I actually really like Chris Rodriguez as an ad if he is available. He's only rostered in 29% of leagues. They're coming off the bye. He was moving into that early down lead role, kind of similar to, I guess, a Zonovan Knight in Arizona. They do have a really tough matchup in Denver, but then they get Minnesota, the New York Giants, Dallas in week 17. So Rodriguez is a guy that I would really like to roster if I have the room, though. Again, week 13 matchup is tough. If you need a running back for week 14, though, I don't hate Chris Rodriguez there. Emmanuel Wilson, we're not going to dive into any of the guys owned in 50% of the leagues. Dylan Sampson, I get it. He had the big play for a touchdown. He is running a decent amount of routes now, but I don't really have interest in rostering him unless you're in a very deep league or you really have luxury spots open for you. No other names on this list really intrigue me, to be honest with you. The one name who is not on this list for whatever reason is Devin Neal. He is probably the talk of the waiver wire for week 13. Now, Devin Neal becomes interesting, obviously, because Alvin Kamara has an MCL sprain. From what I understand, it's not overly significant, but there are a few factors at play here. It's probably going to cost him a week, 2 weeks, could be longer than that. Obviously, the Saints are not playing for anything, so there's a chance they put him on IR. There's a chance they shut him down. Though, the Kamara conversation is a little bit weird, right? He's probably not going to play anywhere else. He's kind of made that clear. Is this his last year? And if so, if he feels or they feel like they don't have anything in the tank left with him and they're going to let him go after this year and he does retire, that kind of feels does Kamara want to go out this way? Probably not. He probably wants to get back and play a few more games this year. So I don't know if they ultimately shut him down altogether for the remainder of the year. So I think it's easy to say they're not playing for anything, whatever. But these guys have pride. They want to play, especially if Alvin Kamara feels like this might be his final year in the NFL. He doesn't want to go out on an MCL sprain. That being said, he played 11 snaps on Sunday. Once he went out, Devin Neal played 57 of 57 running back snaps. To do the math for you, he played every single down for them. On the practice squad, they got Audric Estime, who they picked up from the Denver Broncos mid-year. Kendre Miller's already on the IR. So this will be Devin Neal's backfield as long as Alvin Kamara is out. Now, more moving parts here. The good is that he saw 7 targets. This is a high-paced offense that throws the ball a lot, that's typically trailing. So they're going to have dump-offs available to Devin Neal in the backfield. So I think he has a nice floor in PPR. Their schedule over the next 5 weeks is immaculate. Miami, Tampa Bay, Carolina, the Jets, and then the Tennessee Titans in the fantasy championship. You cannot draw up a better schedule for the fantasy running back in your lineup. Now, where things get a little tricky is Taysom Hill, right? In this game, Devin Neal, like I said, played 57 of the 57 remaining running back snaps. He only saw 7 carries. Game script, whatever. Taysom Hill got 10 carries here. That's going to be a split backfield for sure in terms of the carries. And what stinks is most likely Taysom Hill is going to take the goal line work. They're going to go into the Wildcat package, and sometimes they just prefer him as the power back. He's a much bigger back than Devin Neal is. Devin Neal is actually, he's 213, 214 pounds. So he's not really small by any means. He is a little bit smaller in stature, But in terms of, just pure weight, he's fine. But Taysom Hill, they love using him on the goal line. So that is where my concern kind of comes in, is like, if Devin Neal doesn't catch 5, 6, 7 passes in your PPR league and Taysom Hill sees, 75% of the goal line work going forward, he might have a tough time like seeing the ceiling there. So that's where I'm like a little bit hesitant on Devin Neal. Definitely the top pickup at the running back position this week, and absolutely can be flexed. And if you're desperate, using the RB2 slot for the remainder of the season, as long as Alvin Kamara is out based on the schedule. But again, Taysom Hill is going to have a significant role in this backfield. And with that, I think we could just move over to the wide receiver position. We'll start with the New York Jets wide receivers. We've got John Metchie, who's had back-to-back good games. We've got Adonai Mitchell, who's got back-to-back volume games, but cannot convert anything. As I talked about yesterday in the recap stream, the difference between the two is just Adonai Mitchell's targets are very far downfield. His ADOT right now is like over 22 yards downfield, where John Metchie's ADOT right now is about 5 yards past the line of scrimmage. So he's kind of like this PPR guy, 3 for 45 and a touchdown 2 weeks ago, 6 for 65 and a touchdown this previous week. They get a really good schedule: Atlanta, Miami, Jacksonville, New Orleans, New England. So he is someone that you could throw into your flex spot. That being said, Adonai Mitchell has led this team in targets. He has led this team in routes run, although both of them are pretty much full-time players right now. Tyrod Taylor does give this passing offense a little bit more stability than Justin Fields would, and Garrett Wilson is still on the IR, obviously. So John Metchie, he feels like the preferred receiver because he's actually producing right now, but don't be surprised if Adonai Mitchell, who's seeing more targets, who's seeing a very high ADOT, does end up having like a big game or two over the next month or so, and the production kind of flips in that sense. So I think right now, I don't love either of them. Like, I don't really want them in my starting lineup. But again, there are 4 teams on bye in week 14, and they play the Miami Dolphins. So if you need to flex Metchie, if you need to flex Adonai Mitchell, I don't think they're the worst pickups here. The next chunk of guys is actually interesting to me. Greg Dortch, as long as Marvin Harrison Jr. is out, I think he's like a decently high floor PPR play there. Obviously, as soon as Marvin Harrison Jr. returns, he's going to go back to a nothing burger, but they do have a good matchup against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who have allowed a lot of passing production. Much tougher slate after that with the Rams and Houston. But if you can get him for week 13 and you need a PPR flex play, I like Greg Dortch. Chimere dike is really interesting to me as well, because he had another ceiling game in week 12, 5 for 44 and a touchdown through the air, returned a 90-yard punt return touchdown. As long as there are the injuries to the wide receiver group in Tennessee that there currently are right now, I like the condensed offense that Chimere dike ends up being a big beneficiary of, right? Alec Ayumaner did not practice at all last week because of a hamstring strain, so there's a chance that that's a multi-week injury here. Obviously, Tyler Lockett's in Vegas. Calvin Ridley's out for the year with his broken leg. So it's really just Chimere dike and Van Jefferson running routes. And Cam Ward, anytime dike is like a full-time player, he ends up having pretty good games here. So I actually think he's flexible immediately in week 13, as long as Alec Ayumaner is out. If Ayumaner is active, then that receiver room just becomes extremely volatile. Jayden Higgins, obviously really interesting now. He's becoming like the clear wide receiver 2 in Houston. His target per route run rate over the last 3 weeks is up at like 33%. It is like very, very high. He hasn't had any like big ceiling games because of the yardage, but he continues to score touchdowns. He's got 4 on the year. On Sunday with Davis Mills, 4 for 38 and a touchdown here. We are likely getting CJ Stroud back in week 13 against Indianapolis. They're going to have to score points. So I like Jayden Higgins. I will say Indy, KC, not great matchups, but week 15 and 16, you get Arizona and the Raiders. Hopefully by then, he's running a route on closer to like 75 to 85% of the dropbacks in Houston. Then you could like kind of flex him with confidence. But as you could see over the last 3 games, 9 targets, 7 targets, 7 targets. Like, he is a legitimate part of this offense. He's jumped Xavier Hutchinson. Christian Kirk and Jalen Noel in the slot aren't really doing much. So right now it's Higgins, it's Nico. He's a great complement on the other side, especially when they get into the red zone. And that's why he's scoring a lot of touchdowns, because he's massive. He's 6'4", he's 215. He's a good separator. He's got really strong hands here. So Jayden Higgins is a dude that, by week 15, week 16, I think you could feel relatively confident flexing him. After that, you got a bunch of highly owned guys. Iosivas, I mean, you guys know the deal with Iosivas. He's not a great all-around receiver, but they do play Baltimore on Thursday, Thanksgiving. Decent chance Kyle Hamilton misses that game. Jamar Chase back from suspension, but T. Higgins out with the concussion. So Iosivas, I think you could do worse than flexing, but he also, I think, has a pretty low floor. The other 2 names I would bring up that aren't on this list, I'm not sure how owned they are, would be Luther Burden, who is rostered in 21% of leagues. Okay, well, he's finally jumped Olamide Zaccheaus here in the Bears pecking order. 3 for 46. I mean, I think it's going to be a very volatile, again, receiving room there. Like, as we've seen all year, it's like people just take turns on their production. It is good that he's finally got that wide receiver 3 role. I still think he needs an injury to DJ Moore or Rome Odunze for you to feel confident putting him into your lineup. On top of that, the schedule over the next 4 weeks is brutal. It's at Philly, at Green Bay, Cleveland, Green Bay again. So, like, I don't know where you see confidence in starting him. But again, if one of those guys does get injured, he does see a lot of upside here. He did see a season high in snaps on Sunday against Pittsburgh, and he produced pretty well. They're using him in the run game. They're using him in the passing game. But 1 week it's DJ Moore. The next week it's Rome Odunze. The next week it's Colson Loveland. The week after that, maybe it's Luther Burden. I don't know. I don't feel a lot of confidence, but he definitely needs to be owned. And then the other one that I would just pop in here is Jayden Reed, of course. He should be returning, if not this week, then next week, I believe. He is 41% rostered. They get Chicago in week 14, good matchup. Chicago in week 16, again, good matchup. And then Baltimore in week 17. So Reed, honestly, I just think he's the best receiver in that receiver room when all are healthy and all is said and done. So Reed needs to be rostered right now. And then moving over to the tight end position, there are a couple interesting plays here. Gadsden's obviously very highly owned. Strange came back his first game from IR and immediately led the Jacksonville Jaguars in receiving. Caught all 5 of his targets, 93 yards. He was the playmaker that we remember from weeks 1, 2, and 3. He's a very big part of this offense. I will say Brian Thomas Jr. returns, which I think should be this week. That will have a lot of volatility in this offense, like who's going to end up getting home. They play the Tennessee Titans, so I think their passing offense should have a strong game. But Jacoby Myers is a real player in that offense. So is Parker Washington, Brian Thomas Jr., Travis Etienne, Brenton Strange. So I think he's got a good floor. I question the ceiling when all the players are actually like involved and everyone's running routes and everyone's taking snaps and everything like that. But I do think Brenton Strange will be on the borderline tight end 1 streaming list, especially my rankings for the next, 4 weeks or whatever. They get Tennessee, Indy, New York Jets. Denver's tough, obviously, but Indy again. So I do think Strange is completely playable. And as you can see, he does have a little bit of a ceiling. 5 for 93 is nothing to schmirk at here. I picked up Darren Waller in this league as well. I think he'll be back sooner rather than later. I believe they are supposed to open their practice window for him this week. He was dealing with a pec strain, which it's better than having some sort of like lower body injury when he gets back and that thing lingers. So I think once he's back. And I mean, their schedule going forward is beautiful. The Saints, the Jets, the Steelers, the Bengals, and the Bucks. And if you look at the 3 games he played before he got hurt, man, 18 fantasy points, 19 fantasy points, and 9.2. He is a red zone monster. They still have nothing outside of Jalen Waddle and Achane in the passing game. So honestly, I think it's a really sharp pickup, especially with Cincinnati on the schedule in week 16. So grab Darren Waller. You could stash him in your IR spot if you need to right now. Colby Parkinson, I think there's going to be a lot of hype around him. I think he's still a very, very low floor option. The thing that's going for Colby Parkinson here is he scored 3 touchdowns, touchdown in each of the last 3 weeks. They're playing fewer 3 tight end sets now that Tyler Higbee is on the IR. They actually kind of completely moved away from it, which does condense the tight end targets to just Parkinson and Davis Allen. Terrence Ferguson's not really playing much. So I get the appeal. They've got a good schedule. Carolina, Arizona, Detroit, Seattle stuff, obviously Atlanta in the championship there. You got to be desperate to put Parkinson in. He has been scoring a lot of touchdowns, but the volume's not really there. Though the Rams offense is clicking on every cylinder right now, so I don't blame you for wanting to get a piece attached to that offense, but there's no way you're starting guys like Parkinson over Brenton Strange or any like serious top 12 contenders there. Gunnar Helm is getting more involved in this offense as well. Cam Ward looked pretty good. Again, with those tight end injuries, I get it. But at the end of the day, I don't really want a tight end who's in like a tight end committee with Chiggy in one of the worst passing offenses in the NFL. Taysom Hill, kind of touched on this a little bit. I would caution people, like Taysom Hill seems like a good PPR play on paper. He doesn't catch any passes. Like they're not using him in a pass catching role whatsoever. As you could see, he has 4 targets on the entire season and 3 receptions. He is just in the running back role right now. So the matchup's good. Again, Miami, Tampa Bay, Carolina, New York Jets, Tennessee. Awesome slate down the stretch here. And with Alvin Kamara likely sidelined for a minute, he will take a lot of the goal line work. So, if he scores 3 touchdowns over the next 5 weeks, would not be surprised whatsoever. He outcarried Devin Neal 10-7 on Sunday. So they want to use him in that running back role. He has not been efficient at all this year. He's been pretty bad. There's not a lot of juice there. But again, if you're in a half PPR league, a standard league, like a tight end getting 10 plus carries a game, you could do a lot worse then. All right, let's move over to the trending down tab. I'll let you know, everybody, that I think you are safe to drop here. Sean Tucker would definitely hold on to until we know for sure Bucky is playing. And even then, I think he's like a decent handcuff stash. I think most of these guys are just pure handcuff stashes at this point. Two in the same thing. Devin Singletary, he's actually getting a decent amount of work, and I think in better matchups, you can flex him if need be. Ramondre, I would hold on to. I know he got completely outplayed by Travion Henderson, but it was his first game back from a multi-week turf toe. I do think he gets more involved as the season progresses. JCM, yeah, I think he's droppable if you need the spot. Alvin Kamara, I'd hold on to until we get concrete injury news. Isaiah Davis, he's just a handcuff. You could drop him. Kamani Vidal, definitely do not drop. Blake Corum, handcuff. Rashad White, probably droppable. But again, just more of like a handcuff guy. And we don't know what Bucky Irving's status is for week 13, although we expect him to come back, but not a definite. Emmanuel Wilson, definitely do not drop. Jordan Mason, I think if you need the roster spot, that's probably fine. Their offense is bad and he's not really getting enough work. Tyler Algier, just a handcuff. Wide receivers, iosivas, yeah, I would hold on to him if you need him for this week. Outside of that, like probably don't need him going forward. There's a chance that T. Higgins maybe misses 2 games with a concussion. We've seen them linger a little bit longer this season. That has no effect on T. Higgins, but like it's just an anecdotal thing that I've seen this year. So maybe you want to hold on and because you could use him the next week too, but who knows? Shaver's definitely droppable. Judy definitely droppable, I think, at this point. Addison's tough. I mean, if you need the roster spot, I get it, but I would probably rather play him than some other guys in a flex start. Darius Slayton working his way back from the hamstring. I probably wouldn't drop him. Keon definitely droppable. Ricky, do not drop. Romeo Dobbs, I'm not going to drop him. I have him in this league. Obviously, he's not been great over the last couple of weeks, but I wouldn't drop him. Godwin's bad, man. Godwin is just bad. I think it's fine if you wanted to drop him. Trey Tucker wouldn't drop. Matt Collins kind of becomes a non-factor when Diggs and Boutte and all those guys are healthy, so I think you could drop him. Josh Downs, wouldn't drop him. Had 3 touchdowns in 3 games prior to Sunday's game. Darnell Mooney, definitely don't drop. Naylor can drop. Cup can definitely drop. Adonai Mitchell, like I said, I think he'll have some better days ahead just based on the usage. Look over at the tight ends. Yeah, Otten's kind of a nothing burger as soon as like Godwin and or Mike Evans return, unfortunately. Barner, I wouldn't drop. It's just good being attached to that offense. Laporte is likely out for the year, so you can drop him. Brock Wright doesn't do much in his return. Kyle Pitts, I hate you. I hate you. I hate you. Mark Andrews wouldn't drop. Great matchup against Cincinnati this weekend. And then Ertz is, you know what Ertz is. He's going to score a couple touchdowns over the next month or so, and I think he's fine as a streaming tight end option. So that is all the players. If you want all of my rankings, if you want all the fab suggestions, if you want legit, which guy I'd take over this guy, how much I would spend on him on the wire, that will be up in the waiver wire rankings on our website, which is live by the time you guys are watching this video, bdge.co. Become a Big Dog member. Cheapest way to get it is by going to our partner app or website, MGM. And if you deposit for the very first time, $10 or more, they're going to hit you with a promo code after you play any single slip with that $10 you deposited, and that promo code will give you 3 months free of the Big Dog membership. And what's even cooler is if you are in Missouri, y'all know that everything goes live on December 1st. So if you pre-register, if you download and use the $10 deposit right now with code BDGE on there, you're going to get $100 in free bonus bets on there. But you got to do that before they go live on December 1st. All right. So I will leave y'all with that. I'll be back over the next couple of days with my running back rankings, my wide receiver rankings videos. As always, thank you guys for checking this out today. Thank you for hanging out with me. Smoochies.